stream was introduced to undergraduates this year. What is the progress so far? A. It is very successful. This year we will enroll 1,850 students. Actually, the initial promise was 2,000 students, but we couldn't find all the logistics at the University of Sabaragamua. The selections have been done. 7 universities will be establishing new technological faculties next year. There will be 3 areas. One is biosystems technology, and the other is engineering technology and information technology. What kind of progress are you expecting in this regard in another 5 years? I am expecting to increase the number of the student enrollment up to 6,000 within 5 years. I am not sure whether it is possible. It depends on the compliance of the school system. The technology stream started in schools in 2013 in a selected 1,000 schools project. Out of those 1,000 schools, we could only introduce technology stream to only 300 schools. But we have to introduce this in other 700 schools. We have to provide technology faculties for them as well. There was a 3-storied building which was designed to develop their hands-on skills. We have to provide practical training. Out of these 300 schools, 285 have got these faculties in these schools. This will be developed. We should reach out to other schools as well and encourage progress there, so that the output from the schools will increase. Then we can include these students as well into the technical stream. But if we don't get that output from the schools, this will be hampered. Recently there were a lot of strikes by university students. You were one of the mediators who pacified these students. How did you approach this? When you listen to these students, more than 50% of their grievances are justified. I have genuinely tried to address those grievances, and the students also know that I am trying my best to do something for their benefit. Therefore it is easier to establish dialogue with them. Yet there are politically motivated groups as well. That is the biggest problem. Their motive is to put the government into trouble through incessant protesting. What is their main grievance? They want to increase the access to the university. They want the quality of education to be improved. They want the chances of their employability also to be improved. These are 3 main grievances which we can't accept as justifiable demands. There are problems in these areas. Last year 150,000 students got through the advanced level examinations. They were eligible for university admission. Of those 150,000 students, we could only enroll 27,500 students. It's only about 18% of the eligible students. The remaining 82% must be facilitated. So the private higher education institutions must come into play. Their grievance is that this should not happen. They want the government to offer these student-free education. It is very good to do that. But we have practical problems in our country when we consider the GDP is about $80 billion. Now, as taxes in any developed country, they collect more than 20% of GDP as taxes. In Sri Lanka, it's only about 10%. Last year, it was only 8%. With that money, we cannot do much. So we have to increase the income of the government and exports. We have to look at the whole picture. Then we can realize that according to what we pay to the government taxes, actually a lot of people don't pay taxes. They in fact evade taxes. This is the problem. They ultimately accuse the government, unlike in governments of other countries where they have systems to monitor those who pay taxes and those who do not. In most countries everything is computerized. Even if you use the credit card, the authorities would know the spending powers of each person. Now the government is in the process of implementing such a mechanism to identify the taxpayers and to expand the tax net. With these aspects they hope to increase the tax collection gain to amount to about 10% of the GDP. If we do that, automatically we will be able to spend more on health and education. Without that it is not practical, however much they fight on the streets, which will not increase the government income. These various people who fight and protest on the roads, when they come to a particular position and when they have money, they are the very people who do not pay the taxes. Speaking of accessibility to university, we have to cut off mark system in the rural areas where they have to reach a particular score in their advanced levels to qualify to enter university. In developed areas like Colombo and Gampaha, these cut-off mark is higher as opposed to other areas. But the reality is that the people from rural areas come to the city where they use the educational resources, go to popular schools, and then go back to their rural school just to do their advanced levels. In a situation like that, the children in the city are very much disadvantaged. How would you respond to this? Actually this should not happen. In my opinion, if they go after OL to a rural area and do their AL there, then that is acceptable. But what happen is that they go and register there. They register with the help of a principal of their respective rural school, and then they do not attend that school. They are physically not present in school. They stay in a developed area and use all the resources and the facilities. When the exam time comes, they go back to their rural school to do their examination. This happened in Nuwara last year and this year as well. There were protests and those principals were identified and a legal process against them took place. I think in future this will not take place because we have identified such students and taken measures. The University Grants Commission is also thoroughly scanning the process to identify such problems and to take necessary remedial action. What is the action plan? How are you going to monitor these? Students and parents in those areas have to complain. Only then we will be able to find out. I am not sure whether this is true or not, but according to some parents from Nuwara, in a particular school in Nuwara there is one class of which the students are physically not present, but the register indicates otherwise. We will do our best to tackle this. With regard to tuition, there has been some concern that these teachers lack the qualifications, albeit the fact that they possess the skill to teach. In a typical school, a student is given a well-rounded education, but this does not happen in large tuition classes. Students tend to abandon school in favor of tuition. What is your view? To be honest, due to exam-oriented education system and the competition that surrounds it, this cannot be avoided. The aim is to pass the exams, go to university and then find a good job. This is the aim of all students and their parents. When the market is there, automatically the supply also will be there. It is true that some teachers do not have the adequate academic qualification, but if they are doing a good job with regard to the students, and if this teacher's past record is good, and if they are teaching the correct lessons according to the correct methodology and getting the students through the examination, this is what our particular education system expects. We had a good plan, but we didn't proceed with it. We had a 1,000 school project. Through the challenges faced by the Grade 5 scholarship examination, AL and OL students can be avoided. There are 334 DS divisions in Sri Lanka. We selected 3 schools from each DS division. So 3 multiplied by 334 is 1,002 schools. That is how we commenced the 1,000 schools project. These 1,000 schools were geographically spread in each region. These were schools which had the potential and the infrastructure to develop. All of these were secondary schools. Now this school was allocated 5 satellite or feeder schools. These will be primary schools. There will be 5,000 primary schools. The idea was to develop this concept within 10 years. Every year we have to provide these secondary schools with the facilities to make them schools of high standard. That's how the Mahendodaya concept started. In fact, the first Mahendodaya laboratory was started with my personal expenses. That is how I proved that it could be done. It cost only Rs 6 MN. Each laboratory has 4 sub-laboratories. One is Language Lab, which provides distance learning facilities. We provide them software to learn not just English but French and other foreign languages. Second is the Mathematics and Physics Lab. This focuses on teaching mathematics using activities and aids. There is also an IT lab. Other was a biology and chemistry lab. Before this there were only 720 schools that were able to cater to AL science, so we increased this facility and provided teachers as well. It's not easy to do this. The main problem is providing trained teachers. We need 4,000 graduate teachers for these 1,000 schools. It is very difficult. They don't volunteer to teach in the rural areas for a teacher's salary. They shout in the street that they are saving the country. But after doing the degree, if you ask them to go to a rural area and teach students there, they would not do so. That is the experience we have. We needed 100 teachers to teach English. Only 285 graduates applied. It is very hard to improve the education of the rural areas.